Hey guys, it's Churches, Graveyards and Graves here. So it's a wet day and yeah, it's been a bit had a lot of rain here and it's not great weather, but I've come to bring you to a really special place today. And we're actually in Burslem, near Stoke-on-Trent. But I brought you to this grave because there's something about it that's really particular. There's not that many around, but this is what is known as a genuine witch's grave, the witch's grave of Burslem. And you can see it behind me here. This is the actual witch's grave. So I'm going to show you a few things about it and tell you a little bit of the story of this grave as well. Okay, so I'm just going to turn it around now. So you can see that some of the graves around, and I mean this one's quite interesting because this is like a sort of a sarcophagus grave, but you can see where the body would have been. You can also date it because here is 1796. But the grave we're really interested in is this one. So this is the witch's grave of Molly Lee. Now, the one thing that I want to point out, a couple of things, is that firstly there's just no markings on this grave at all. I've looked around it and there's just nothing on it. It's like a completely unmarked grave, but a massive stone. Okay, so that's quite interesting that they did that. And I also want you to notice is you can see the position of this grave and try and see the position of these graves. So all these graves, the feet are facing east because they all face towards Jerusalem, whereas this one is going north-south. So it's literally at a right angle to the other graves. Yeah, so this one is at a right angle to all the other graves. So that's really interesting in itself. So there was obviously something really particular about this, that they did it like this, because graves are never set like this. So we know something of the story of Molly, who this grave is. And we know that she died in March 1748. She was a single woman. She was quite successful in business. She was a property owner. She also suffered from smallpox. That's what we get. So I'm going to keep showing you the grave. Which would have meant she would have had a slightly disfigured face. So, and you tend to, in them days, they were so superstitious. So you would have had if you were a single woman on your own and you had like disfigurement, anything like that, you were much more likely to be considered to be a witch or considered to be suspicious. And what didn't help her as well is that she did keep a pet jackdaw. So, and as you know, if you know anything about your history, keeping like black cats or jackdaws or crows or anything like that, you used to consider them like familiars. So that would have been one of the reasons. So, you know, single woman on her own, not particularly good looking. So like in today's society, if you haven't got the looks, if you don't quite fit the bill, you're considered to be suspicious. And it was just the same for Molly. So Molly Lee was considered like that. So when she died in 1748, when they considered her a witch, she was buried in the churchyard. But this grave came after she died. So this grave came after she died, yeah, like I was saying, because the clerics at the church at the time, they decided that she was haunting the town of Burslem. So they exhumed the body and then they reburied her with the live jackdaw that had been a friend. And then they restructured it so it was north-south. Basically to mark the fact that she was considered unholy and a witch. Well, how about that, eh? Unholy and a witch. Oh dear. So this was the fate of Molly. So this is Molly Lee and this is a real story. So the chances are, even though they believed that she was haunting the place, it's likely that this was just an old lady who was single and perhaps not as good looking as some of the other single ladies about. But that's the story of Molly Lee, and she was considered to haunt Burslem, and she's buried here, right here in this grave, with a jackdaw, with the live jackdaw. So that's the witch's grave of Molly. I'm now just going to take you, oh sorry about that, I'm just going to take you over a bit and just show you a couple of the other graves. So as well as this sarcophagus grave, and obviously the grave of Molly, as I come out you'll see how it's at a right angle to the others. Just want to bring you around here slightly, because there is another little section. So these graves are also stunning. So another tabletop grave, but here is the graves, because we're near Stoke-on-Trent, and this is the grave of Wedgwood, or what some of the Wedgwood family. So you can see that there was Thomas Wedgwood of Etruria. So the Wedgwood factory is still going, and right there, over there, you can see the potteries, or the old pottery factory. You can see the old pottery factory there is now derelict, but obviously this part of the church is much more modern, although the tower itself and the graveyard is really old. Hey, you just on top of my head then. So yeah, I'll turn around so you can see the potteries in the background. Yeah, so that's the story of Molly Lee, the Witch of Burslem. So she's still considered a witch, and she's still buried in an unholy grave. But we also have the graves here of Wedgwood and in the potteries that they created. And we've got some of the other old graves here of that period. So I'm going to come down here. You can see them. But they're not considered witches' graves, because obviously they're all facing towards east, towards Jerusalem. And Molly has been moved north-south with a jackdaw. And they also put these really heavy stones on top, because sometimes they believed that, you know, they were going to come back. so they put a real weighty stone on the top, because just in case they decided to rise from the dead and come and haunt the place, like kind of like a vampire. So I'm sure Burslem hasn't been haunted by vampires lately, but you never know. See you soon.